Welcome to the Schmucks of the Galaxy podcast. I'm your dancing clown, Toby.
I'm Tits, otherwise known as Ben, otherwise known as Tits.
I'm the sexiest cosmic entity from the macroverse. I am Zach.
You're a floating turtle.
Yeah, I'm a floating turtle. Or
Right-
it could be Pennywise. 'cause
Right
I'm
now, we are performing the ritual of Chud.
I don't know. I'm
What?
uninformed.
Okay, was that too obscure of
That
a
was
reference?
way too obscure.
It's about it.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's a thing that happens in the book.
I haven't read the book.
Anyways, just a disclaimer.
Now I don't think I want to read the book.
Oh yeah, the children orgy was like,
Hey.
you're okay with that, but as soon as like we're performing a ritual
Hey.
with the turtle,
Like Stephen King said, you're okay. You're not okay with the orgy, but you're okay with all the child murders.
fair
That is-
enough.
That is kind of funny.
Okay, just a disclaimer.
Thoughtful,
Zach is
actually.
currently lost in the negative zone, so he's recording from all the way.
Through Spider-Man's butthole.
There you go.
Well,
Couldn't-
I was trying to get back to my hometown in the macroverse, and I just ended up getting lost on the way.
well, we already miss you, buddy.
Oh, that's sweet.
Ew. Anyways, so here's what we're gonna do.
This moment of sentimentality was brought to you by
The Macroverse. Let's start off by giving, like, just initially our spoiler-free take on the movie It. So, who wants to go first?
I can start. I don't want to compare it to the original TV movie because they're so different, and the TV movie is just AIDS, except for Tim Curry. So basically, for this one, it mixes a sweet coming of age movie with a really fucked up kind of like grotesque horror movie, and I really enjoyed it.
Zach?
My initial thoughts on the movie, I would say that to me, it's as if they took a coming of age story as well, but tried mixing it up with like a Nightmare on Elm Street on steroids. Basically, it seemed to come across as a lot more like in your face and a lot harsher than any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies were. I don't know. I know it's its own thing, but I think it had a lot of. It just felt. I don't know. Pennywise just felt to me in humor and presentation a lot like Freddy Krueger in certain ways.
Yeah, I can see that. It's just the main difference between the two is that with Freddy there are like defined rules. Like if you wake up or like during the day he can't get you. But with Pennywise it doesn't really seem like there are that many rules except for like if you're not afraid of him, he's not as powerful. So I think that's the main difference. But I get what you're talking about with like the presentation.
Personally, I thought that this movie, I know it takes place in the 80s, but in terms of tone and genre, it felt a lot like, and I know this might sound silly initially, but it felt a lot like kids' movies from the 80s.
Yeah.
Because it had very uplifting and very light moments, but it had the kind of stuff that you don't see very often in family or kids' movies these days, where it's has these moments of horror and just brutality. Like it's definitely not a good comparison, but the first thing that came to mind was that weird movie in like the weird spin on Wizard of Oz. I think it was called Return to Oz. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The movie where it's
like the darker one where like most of them are dead or something.
it's something like that. It's like I only remember
That's what they based the TV show on or something.
I'm not sure. Like it's a movie from the 70s or the 80s, but it's a really dark and fucked up movie.
I thought you were gonna say The Wiz, and I was like, I don't know where you're going with that.
All right, let's not go there.
The
but-
way it crossover. You
No.
heard it here.
Oh yeah, part of the Boss Baby cinematic
It's
universe.
disgusting. That definitely exists.
But it will exist if we keep believing. You know, if you
Oh, yeah.
if you believe in it, they will Boss Baby it. Anyways,
Ew.
yeah, you can quote me on that. Anyways, yeah, it just reminded me of movies like Labyrinth and Legend, where it has this very fantastical element to it, and it's also kind of fucked up, but it still has the ability to be enjoyed by people of all ages, and I think that is probably the reason why it's so successful, because there is that incredible blend between coming of age and pure horror, and I really, really enjoyed the
Yeah,
movie.
it's like if if Stand By Me had like scenes directed by Cronenberg.
Yeah, there was some really
Yeah,
fucked up
that's
shit in
a
this
great
movie.
way to describe it. Actually, I think that's almost like a perfect one-sentence way of describing the whole like tone of the movie,
Oh,
or
thank
what the
you.
movie was.
Well, I thought it was just fine.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. We're in this room now. All right. Do we want to just already move into spoilers?
Yeah, I don't. I feel like spoiler free is way too general.
Yeah. We won't like.
So basically, before we go into spoilers, go see it. I've seen it twice. Like it's definitely worth your money.
It's definitely worth seeing twice, and that's coming from someone who has only seen it once, and I know I want to see it a second time.
I would
I
actually
do
see it a
too,
third
really
time.
bad.
Yeah, it's a great movie, and if you're a fan of horror movies or just good movies, I highly recommend it. But if you're afraid of clowns, you might want to think about taking someone who can, someone with big arms that you can hold on to during the movie. Anyways,
I'll go.
oh, hello. Let's move on to spoilers. Last chance, and holy shit, I could not believe when he bit off Georgie's arm. That really set the tone of the movie.
And I even warned you about it
Like
beforehand.
you told me, like, man, this movie is really brutal. Just you wait. And I didn't really think, like, I can't think of a movie that I've seen in the theaters where they are this fucking violent to children. Like, I can't think of a movie, at least in the mainstream world, where, like, there hasn't been a time where you've seen children really in danger.
Yeah, well, it made Pennywise seem like a threat because in the first one, even though I love Tim Curry, like in the original one, he's the most ineffective killer because he just like messes with them and then they get away. He
Yeah.
messes with them and then they get away.
Well, and again, not to compare it directly, but I think the biggest difference between the miniseries and this movie is budget, because a lot of the stuff that happened in that movie was rather held back and kind of tame.
It was also TV, so I feel like
Yeah.
they had more restrictions.
Yeah, and with this movie, they turned it up to 11, and like the first thing that comes to mind is the scene where Bevy is in her bathroom.
Mhm.
And if you saw the original, it's rather, I mean, it's pretty.
It's gross, but it's more tame.
It's more tame to compare to like what happens in the movie, because it's so intense in the movie, and I just thought it was going to be more or less a mirror of what happened in the original, where blood just
Mhm.
spurts up. But holy shit,
It covers the entire room. Well, in the original one,
it was just her sink.
Yeah, and in this one, it's the entire room.
Yeah, it's like Splash Mountain, like jumped out of her sink.
It's great.
It was really disgusting.
Yeah, and I also felt like, unlike in the original movie, when her father comes in and can't actually see any of the blood, I found that to be far more disturbing in the new one than I felt like it was in the original.
Yeah.
Because I felt like it was so much more intense.
It reminded me of Carrie.
Yeah.
Almost.
A little bit.
Carrie, yeah, I can see that. Just for somebody not to like notice how like gross that room is, just I don't know, made me notice it more.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can really explain it.
I think it's because it's so much more, like, the scale of that scene is so much bigger, and that when he walks in and he's like, "Yeah, I don't see a thing," it's like, are you fucking kidding me? You don't see the blood? Because like in the original, it's just in the sink and a little bit on her face.
Right.
Well, it's like in the beginning of the new one too. Like the guy that worked in the meat packing thing or the butcher or whatever didn't see Pennywise hanging from a meat hook. Like when he walked out to Mike, it's like all the adults are just oblivious.
Was that like a scene in the original? Because
I don't think so.
No, it wasn't.
I think most of the set pieces were original, except for I think the leper was in the book. But in the book, from what I've heard, because I haven't read it, I think the leper tried to give Eddie a blowjob in the book.
I mean, that sounds about right. There's weirder stuff that happens in the movie than that. Like,
I don't know about that, but
in terms of like, there's not much in it that's sexual, and I actually kind of appreciated that.
Right.
Because I don't know why, the first
Jason
time I got
himself.
weird sexual vibes, but the second time I didn't at all, and I think that's just based on who I saw it with.
Fair enough.
It's funny that you say that because Stephen King actually said that all the changes they made to make it less sexual, even he like completely understood. He was like, the changes they made, I felt like unlike a lot of the other movies where huge changes have been made, I found that I understood them and they didn't ruin the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know about the rest of his work, but Stephen King seems like the type of author that like does a mountain of cocaine and then writes a 1,000-page book in a weekend. So like I just feel like the book, and this is just based off of the original because I feel like they tried to go more by the book. It's like a lot of ideas that are thrown into one premise, and then like the core of it, which is the fucked up clown, is kind of buried. And I feel like in this new one, all the set pieces might have started with like some kind of monster, but most of them ended with Pennywise, and then in the fight at the very end, when each kid like took a swing at him, he ended up morphing into their fear.
Yeah, that was really
So like
visually
he became the painting, he became like weird crab thing, he had like the burning arms from Mike's thing coming out of his mouth, like he threw up on Eddie because he's afraid of germs.
right.
So I thought that was interesting. And his eye color thing was cool. Like when he was being innocent, he had Bill Skarsgård blue eyes, but then when he was about to attack or be creepy, they turned yellow.
The only time I noticed that was when it was when Pennywise was hanging off of the meat hook, and then his eyes were just
Right.
blatantly like glowing yellow.
Yeah, they
That
showed
was
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
They highlighted it in when he's talking to Georgie, because in like the first half of the conversation, his eyes are blue, and then once he's like, take it, his eyes change color. And Toby noticed this, but I don't know if it was intentional, but I think I have a theory that one of his contacts was like off center the whole time because they really tried to play up that Pennywise isn't a human and he's not sure how humans should look. So there were certain points in the movie where I'm like, I'm pretty sure his eyes aren't straight.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was just the glare from like the lighting making it look like one of his eyes was cross-eyed, but I mean, I'll definitely have to see it again just to be able to
Because I noticed it
confirm
the
that.
second time.
Yeah.
But I like that this movie has things where we can kind of read into it because we're not sure. Like we were
Right.
talking about how Eddie's mom, how I had the theory that the second time when Eddie is gonna go and meet his friends, she was like afraid and she's like, "Don't do this to me." And my theory was that like as they age, they all forget about Pennywise, but
Right.
Eddie's mom still knew that like some shit was out there. And it's like I don't know if that's even true, but
I don't think it is, but I think
I like that I
but
can think that it could be.
yeah, I think what you're trying to say, and I agree, like this is a movie that doesn't give
It's
all,
ambiguous.
it doesn't give all the answers, and that's not just because it sets up a sequel, which is expected because there's a whole other like half of the story that's in the book.
And the movie did really fucking well, so
Yeah.
they kind of have to.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
agree.
it wrapped everything up really nicely, which
Yeah,
I
but
appreciated.
it's still left a lot to be answered, and I think whether or not that stands the test of time, it depends on what they answer or what they don't answer in the sequel.
Right.
So it'll be very interesting. What did you guys think of the kids? Because
I thought the casting was perfect.
I thought like the only kid I recognized was the guy who played Richie from
Was
Stranger Things.
Finn.
Yeah, he was definitely my favorite character in the movie because
Yeah.
he was just so funny. But everything that was so standout was, and again, this is something that I really loved about the movie that is very distinct about this movie is how authentic the kids feel. Like,
Yeah, they nailed the dialogue.
yeah, like these kids are talking smack to each other, like, and it's good smack too, and it's really funny. Like the only time I thought of that I can remember that kind of dialogue was in E.T.,
Mm-hmm.
where like the brothers would like argue and bicker. That's what it kind of reminded me of, but obviously in an R-rated tone.
Yeah, Zach, you go first.
Can you hear?
I heard the static.
Oh, no. I was just gonna say that I felt like they talked to each other even though they were they were in high school, all right, or middle school.
High school.
High school.
Were they freshmen?
Okay.
They were
No, they were 13.
No, they were.
Because Stanley was having his bar mitzvah.
Oh right.
Yeah,
So
but
they
you
were
can
like,
still
Oh,
have
they're
your bar
freshmen.
mitzvah when you're in high school, if you get,
I guess. I think they were 13 though. How old were we when we started high school? I don't even remember.
I was 13 when I started high school.
Okay, then maybe they were
Right.
freshmen.
Really, what's your social security number?
911. Oh
Oh,
no,
no.
that's today.
Oh shit! Jesus Christ!
God damn it.
Ben, don't go there. You've already gone there once.
I'm not going
on a
there today.
podcast.
Yeah, let's avoid
Today's
that.
a day of respect.
Holy shit! Anyways, yeah, I really loved the kids in these movies, and the only one that really I didn't really care for was Stan, because I just felt like he was the only one that didn't really grow as a character, in my opinion. I just felt like he was kind of a bitch, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest.
Which I like that they almost had his face get eaten off, because
Yeah.
then I was kind of like, okay, it's justified that he's freaked out.
Yeah. Like that part, I genuinely thought they were killing him right there. Like,
That's what I thought too.
it really fucked with
So
me.
they could just not have to do it in the second part.
Yeah. Have the head speak in the refrigerator.
Who else? I mean, Ben didn't do a whole lot, but he did have like that nice love triangle thing.
Yeah, with Billy and Beverly.
Yeah, I mean, he had some moments, but I feel like overall it was Bill, Richie, and Eddie that were like and Bev that were like kind of at the forefront, and
Yeah.
then Stanley and Ben were kind of just there.
I thought, and
Even though they were focused on in the beginning, so
Right.
that helped.
this is less has to do with the acting, but I'm still concerned exactly how they're gonna address Mike killing what's the name of the bully?
Henry, I don't think he's dead.
You don't think he's dead?
I think because the well was like fucking bottomless, so I think
Right.
Mike will probably think he killed Henry, and then Pennywise they're probably gonna, they might have it where Pennywise survived by feeding off of Henry's fear for years. And that's why Henry's
just,
fucked up.
Well, the thing that's a good idea. I think he just might straight up have eaten him,
He
because
might.
Pennywise near the end, he said he just wanted to eat Billy, and that
Mhm.
the rest of them could leave, and he
Yeah.
like hibernate. Like,
So then he just needed one kid.
yeah, like if he just needed one kid, he could have just eaten
That's
him,
true.
and that's how maybe he survived. That'd be really clever, actually.
Yeah, because we don't see like, it's not like there's a thump and the body like hits the ground. He
Yeah.
just keeps going.
Yeah, for all we know, he like fell in the sewer.
Yeah.
That'd be
My
really
one
cool.
issue with this movie is that no one acknowledged that the bully Patrick was killed. Ever.
Yeah,
They hung a
that's
missing
true.
sign, a missing poster, but no on-screen character ever said anything about that.
It kind of reminded me in the second Deathly Hallows movie when there's that giant fire thing chasing everyone, and then Malfoy's friends get eaten up by the fire, and
Oh,
he
yeah,
says
and-
absolutely nothing about it. That's what it reminded me.
Yeah.
I don't remember how that
You
went
know what?
down in the book.
You know what really shocked me in this movie was when what was his name? The bully Patrick?
Are the one with the lighter or the one with the switchblade?
The one with the switchblade.
That's Henry. Henry. What's his last name? Henry Bowers.
He killed his father and was manipulated by Pennywise. I thought that was one of the most creepy
Yeah.
parts of the movie.
And if you listen, because I noticed this the second time, if you listen, that TV show is on in every single house.
Oh my god, are you kidding me?
Yeah, Eddie's mom is watching it. Bev's dad, I think it was on at one point, and you can hear the woman like saying things like, "Do you kids all want to float?" Like,
Oh,
it's on in
no.
all the houses, and it's consistent, but they don't pay attention to it until that scene. So I really like that.
Jesus Christ. Also, I didn't notice this, but I read this on Reddit. The scene where Ben is in the library and he sees the balloon floating behind him. If you look at the librarian, she's smiling. Like,
Is she really? I didn't even notice
she's supposed
that.
to be Pennywise in that scene.
Oh shit!
Yeah, so like when I see that again, I'm gonna have to look. Like, again, this is another thing.
It makes sense. She had weird dialogue.
Yeah.
Don't you have any friends?
Oh.
I mean, so that kind of makes sense.
No, that does clear a lot up. Honestly, now that you're pointing it out, I feel stupid for not having noticed it the first time.
I wouldn't feel stupid because I think it's to the credit of the movie that they like
It's subtle.
Yeah,
There
they
are
hit
a lot
all
of
these little
subtleties.
nuggets in there.
Yeah, and the reason, so we all love Red Letter Media, but I was watching their It episode, and Jay said that every time Pennywise is on screen, it's like the scares are followed by very just loud noises, and he said he hated that. And they said jump scare a lot, and they compared it to Annabelle Creation, and I don't know if that's fair because there's really only one jump scare in the movie that I can think of, and it's when he takes Bev. The rest of it is very like set piece, body horror. Like it's not. It's more about the way he talks and the way he moves than him just jumping out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like when he sprints at Bill, like yeah, there's noise to follow that because then it would just be bizarre without it.
Right.
But there's been more before that, and there's more after. It's not like it's just a cheap gag.
I think that there's a difference between a good jump scare and a bad jump scare. And a good jump scare is when the scare is legitimate, like it's the actual threat. And if it isn't, like I think there was only one time in this movie where there was a jump scare that was illegitimate, and it was in the beginning, and they got it right out of the way.
The walkie-talkie.
Exactly. So like they got that out of the way,
but they also did it. They brought that sound bite or the sound clip back like 3 times. So it's like a lot of things in the beginning of the movie pay off at the end.
Yeah.
Like when they're chasing when Bill's going after Georgie in the sewer, you hear the little squawk of
right.
the thing. So it's like they use it cheaply once, but then that's just
to get
the sound in your head.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think this movie is like your typical jump scare fest because it's not like it's waiting, there's silence. Like it happens a couple times, but for the most part, this movie is disturbing, and that's what makes a good horror movie, not spooking you. And I feel like for the most part, I was more off-put by what I was seeing rather than jumping out of my chair because there was a loud noise. Like the stuff that...
It's not like the James Wan school of dead silence build up. You're looking around, and then, like, boom. It was more... He's unpredictable. Like, he can be like, oh, hi, Georgie. And then he can be like... And then he can sprint at them and, like, be fucking scary as shit.
Like, the part where... like initially I thought, oh, this is typical horror, and it's something subtle, but when Billy is in his basement or the cellar or whatever, and he sees Georgie talking to him, and then Pennywise rushes after him, the part where
I love that much.
But the part where Pennywise is just staring up the staircase and just like slithers down, that fucked with me. Like that's just like.
But even when he pokes his head out the water and then he just violently throws Georgie into the, like, there's more before he starts running.
Yeah, and the thing is that when he appears, what's disturbing,
and it's brutal as fuck.
Yeah, for the most part, he stays on screen, and like the scare and the disturbing parts, like they carry on. They're like extended as far as they need to be.
I think the difference is that a lot of jump scares are scary because of there's a lack of presence, and then all of a sudden there's like a loud bang.
Right.
In this movie, Bill Skarsgård is scary because of his presence.
Yeah, and Bill Skarsgård, coming back to your comparison, Zach, I really do think that he's the next Robert Englund, or like
I hope so.
The next great horror icon in terms of the character and the actor.
I agree, but at the same time, I feel like because it will only be 2 movies, you can't do more. I feel like I'm not sure how close it will get to gaining that like cultural reputation that Freddy Krueger or Robert Englund like has in pop culture.
Yeah.
Especially because even though, don't get me wrong, I prefer Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise over Tim Curry's Pennywise. I still feel like I think Tim Curry's is like, at least for now, is more iconic. Maybe
I don't really know why, though. Was it just iconic because he was the first and people saw it when they were kids? Because, like, I mean, he's great, but...
He's the best part of that movie, but it doesn't hold up.
He's the best part of a bad movie. And it's not even... That's not saying that he's bad.
Here's what I'll say. I know it's not a good movie, but I felt like there were little moments in there that they didn't do in this movie that didn't make the movie, the new one, worse by any means, but I felt like they were kind of creepy. This is from my, like, memory as a 4th grader, you know?
Yeah.
But what I remember is there was a scene when he was looking, and it wasn't Georgie, but I think it was someone's, like, dad or somebody's dead relative.
Yeah,
who was like, waving at them
Ben's dead dad,
and digging a grave for himself. And I was like, this is fucking creepy.
Yeah.
Like, little things like that I thought actually worked really well.
Okay,
and if had they done them, they would have been really scary in this movie. They didn't go that route, but I thought that things like that in the old one, people overlook because they're very subtle and there's nothing really shocking about it. but I think it's kind of creepy. Like the thought of walking somewhere and then having like a dead relative of yours just like digging his own grave,
Right.
you smiling, and then a balloon pops out of nowhere. That's really creepy.
Right.
Little
And
things
I
like
think
that. I
they
think Tim Curry though wasn't not scary. I just think he was. I think he wasn't. I don't know how to explain it. He wasn't scary, but I thought he had he had moments where he genuinely had like I don't know an intimidating presence.
right.
Like in
He
the
felt
movie, I wasn't
more.
scared of Pennywise.
He
I was
felt
scared
more
of when we were
human to me
kids.
though than Skarsgård.
I think what was interesting between the two of them was that Tim Curry felt like a clown that had moments of like
Insanity.
yeah, like of moments of like showing his inner demon, but Bill Skarsgård like had
was a demon that showed inner moments of being a clown.
I was gonna say more like of an even split because like even when he's fucking like gnawing on an arm, he's still like using it to wave to someone.
Yeah,
like,
he has a smile and he waves the hand.
He has a way of taking like Tim Curry's performance is very different than Skarsgård in that I think Tim Curry was a clown like on the surface, and Skarsgård was a demon and a clown on the surface.
Skarsgård could freak you out and then 2 seconds later make you laugh.
Yeah, but like the laughs complemented the scares.
Exactly.
I don't think, and not to the discredit of Tim Curry, I think that there was more a jarring transition between being a monster and being a clown for Tim Curry. I think that Skarsgård like had this disgusting way, and I think like even the cracking of his voice was like emblematic of that. I really do think that even though this is probably going to be 2 movies, I think that like as time goes on, he's going to be remembered as one of the great horror villains.
Unless he might achieve England status as just playing other characters.
Could be. I'd
love for him to stay Pennywise, but if they end up retiring it, maybe he could.
I don't think he can do much else with it though. Once they do the second movie, what's going to really do? Unless they do something crazy.
Well, I think, and I might be wrong here, but I think considering that Warner Brothers has done this before, they might split up the next movie into 2 parts.
I hope not.
Because they did it with Harry Potter, they did it with The Hobbit, where they took the second part and did it into 2 movies. Well, they split one book into 3 movies.
Yeah.
But initially it was going to be 2 parts, and they took the 2 parts.
The Hobbit's so freaking long that it could be 2 movies.
Well, and also it is a 1,000-page plus book.
Right, but we've already got the first half out of the way.
Exactly, but like I'm curious if they're gonna.
If they have enough substance to do it, then I guess.
Like, it depends on what they're keeping and what they're taking out. Because if they're keeping the stuff with the turtle and the ritual of Chud and, like, all that fucking
weird mythology.
Exactly. Like,
it's not that it's bad, it just doesn't fit in what they've established.
Well, it could fit. And it'd be very, like, I mean, we've seen weirder stuff that feels like it could not work in a movie be done very well. But my guess is if Warner Brothers wants to capitalize on this, they are probably in the coming months gonna like announce that it's gonna be 3 movies. Yeah, and I wouldn't be against that. It just depends on, for one thing,
I think if they keep what's his name, Andy Muschietti, if they keep him as director, it could work.
Yeah, I think that it really does rely on keeping the talent, but also making sure that it's justified. Because The Hobbit, Desolation of Smaug is a great movie up until the end, because it ends at the climax.
Yeah, that's what I remember. I don't think I saw the one after, because I was like,
Yeah, the Battle of Five literally is, the first scene is the entire climax of this other movie. And then, I mean, I don't want to go on a tangent about the Hobbit trilogy, but again, it just depends on whether or not they add stuff or take stuff away that really makes it feel justified.
Well, the source material definitely has enough for them to add.
Right.
Which is good. I just hope it's not overstuffed.
Yeah.
Because, like, seeing a giant flying space turtle and then seeing, like, a clown is kind of bizarre.
I don't know.
But I also haven't read the book, so I don't know if the book pulls it off with, like, some grace.
Yeah. I don't know.
So I think that's the difference.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Zach?
Regarding like the further mythology.
Yeah, like
it could potentially go into.
Yeah.
I feel like I can see them delving into it. Actually, funny enough, they almost did. My roommate was telling me, like yesterday, that they almost considered having a scene that was dedicated to Pennywise's origin from the Macroverse in the movie, but it was too expensive, so they ended up just scrapping it.
Huh.
I think it could work, but if it's touched upon mildly, like if it's used sparingly and effectively, I feel like it could be cool, but I feel like they can't focus too much onto that because for the It storyline specifically, I feel like it's not all that necessary to go too deeply into it. But let's say in the future they did a third film somehow that focused on like Pennywise's origin or things like that, or like the Macroverse, maybe that could work. However, I feel like he probably wouldn't be a clown because he's not exploiting the fear of humans.
Right.
So I feel like that'd be a little bit hard to like retain like his iconic image. But funny enough, in Dark Tower, Matt Sharin, the name of like this intergalactic cosmic deity turtle kind of thing that essentially
I
like
love that.
vomits up galaxies, is like is neighbors or like is living in the Macroverse alongside Pennywise, and Pennywise has an inferiority complex, and as a result, he wants to prove that he's better than Matchrin due to Matchrin's power. So another thing to keep in mind is whereas Pennywise is extroverted, Matchrin, despite all of his powers, is very introverted and very gentle. So in order to feel superior, Pennywise goes to parts of the galaxy that Matchrin like has created and decides to just destroy all of it just to get back at him.
So is Pennywise like in multiple places at the same time doing this?
No, one place at a time.
I think Matron, or however you say it, is the image that people use when they say the Earth is flat and it's on the back of a turtle.
Oh, that meme I sent you?
Yeah, that's him. I'm almost positive
Like
that's
the
him.
actual meme is him.
Yeah, is that specific turtle from the It storyline?
I don't know. We need a fact check on that.
I'm 90% positive because I saw an image of what Zach's talking about, and then I saw what you sent, and I was like, holy shit, these are like that's the same thing. So I'm almost positive it's the same.
Jesus.
I don't know. Now we're like,
Yeah.
the more we get into it, the more I feel like we better stay away from the turtle stuff.
Yeah, I mean they could do like if they wrap up the adult story in part 2, like they could do a Prometheus where it's like an origin thing.
The thing is that if they do,
I don't want them
if they
but
make
they
it a trilogy, I don't want them making a whole movie dedicated to Pennywise's origin because
then he's not as scary.
Yeah, like we don't need that shit. We like it's better leaving it some ambiguous because again, that's what I enjoyed so much about this movie is they kept so much of the mythology ambiguous and left it interesting without making you like second guess the movie.
Yeah, and they weaved him into the town's history, which provided a little backstory, which was nice.
We were talking about like how because Matchrin is also like a big player in the Dark Tower series, that it would be kind of funny to see if it had Roland fighting I don't fucking know Pennywise, for instance.
That would be the most bizarre. Idris Elba fighting a clown version of Bill Skarsgård would be the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Well, the question is though, is would Skarsgård look like a clown? Because I doubt that would be something that really frightens Roland. Even though, like, psychologically speaking, humans naturally find clowns scary because the distortions to human features make it so naturally your brain's like, oh, something is way off.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know what Roland's really afraid of, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Then if that's the case and he's like some CG thing, I don't know if they'd even get Bill Skarsgård. Because, like, what?
Yeah, and I wouldn't
what's
want
the point?
that. I'd want him to be the clown anyway, so it just wouldn't work.
Yeah, I don't think there'd even be a voice because he'd be like some alien thing.
Yeah. But unfortunately, we live in a universe where the Dark Tower is a piece of shit. Like, at least the movie. So I don't know if this will be happening anytime soon. Unfortunately,
it probably never will.
Yeah,
unless it didn't do well.
Yeah. Who do you guys want to play all the characters in the sequel, like the adult versions? Like, personally, I
don't want any name actors.
Neither do
That's why it's so hard to choose.
Yeah.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, the only character that I can think of, I mean, actor, and it would just be funny because it would be sort of meta, is Seth Green, because he was in the original
Yeah.
series. Because I think he played Richie in the original series. So,
Did he? I think he did.
like, he could play Stan. Like, I would be totally okay with that.
Even though they look completely different from
I
the
mean,
kid version.
They just have to give him curly hair and I don't know.
and dye it black.
Yeah, and give him a.
It's funny that you say that because even though I agree, I prefer unknowns. If I were to choose like two main actors, the only ones that come to mind that might work, even though these are stretches, Jessica Chastain as Beverly, or Chadwick Boseman
as Mike.
Yeah.
You see, I think the guy from Get Out should play Mike. I
Oh
think
yeah, that would be awesome.
He's a little young though. That's the only thing. Aren't they 40?
it's 27 years later, so they're probably in their early 40s. You're right. Huh.
Even though I don't remember his name, but I thought he was great.
Yeah,
Unless they age him up.
they could.
What's his name? Could play Mike? Killer Croc.
Ottawele.
Yeah, he's actually a good actor if you don't look at Killer Croc.
Maybe.
Or Chiwetel Ejiofor.
From
butchered.
12 Years a Slave.
Yeah, I just butchered his name, but he's also
he
great.
would be really good.
He's great.
He would be really good. Because, I mean, have you guys seen 12 Years a Slave?
Yeah.
He's a great actor.
I haven't seen any. He was just in
He was in Doctor Strange.
Yeah, he was just in or no, that's actually Chadwick Boseman was in a Netflix like thriller movie that was really good.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of Billy. Who would be Billy? Oh, you know who'd be great?
There's an actor that looks like the kid, and I can't picture like his name.
How meta would it be if they got Bill Skarsgård to play one of, like actually just Bill Skarsgård?
I mean,
one of the
he
adults.
probably, even though he's only 27.
Oh, then maybe his older brother.
Alex would be a good shit, or his dad to have a cameo as someone.
That'd be interesting.
So are we confirming a Tarzan It crossover?
Oh my god!
And then if they cast Stellan Skarsgård, it's a Tarzan It Thor cinematic universe.
Holy shit! Oh my god! Pennywise joins the Avengers, and this
I feel like he'd be more of a villain, don't you think?
Maybe, but the crazy thing is,
he would join the Avengers and then kill all of them. And
if
then
this all happens,
evil.
it falls under the banner of the Boss Baby cinematic universe.
Ew.
God.
Yeah, it sounds gross, but just wait till you see it. It gets worse.
It's Oscar bait.
Oh, it's death bait.
Ew.
Oh man.
Jesus.
The only other person I could think of is the guy who from The Office, like the
Rainn Wilson.
No, to play Eddie, the really tall. I forget the name of the guy.
You mean the guy that played Gabe?
Gabe from The Office could be
from
Eddie.
He was also in Stupid Ghostbusters.
Yeah, like he could be Eddie.
He could be. He's actually really funny. They just don't give him the chance.
Right. He's also in Silicon Valley.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I could see him as Eddie because he kind of.
I could see John Krasinski as Bill.
No, I can't.
I can picture it.
He looks nothing like him though.
Kind
Not
of.
really.
If you picture this kid though,
No,
I can see it.
I can't.
Either him
sorry.
or
It's gonna be our first fight.
I'll kill you for this.
Oh no.
I'm trying to think who else could be. I mean, Ben looks totally different. So if Zach Galifianakis lost like 50 pounds, he could do it.
That'd be interesting. Again, the idea of having like big name actors could take us all out.
I
of the
know.
movie.
That's why I don't. It's hard to cast.
Yeah.
Someone you don't know.
I don't know. It's definitely gonna be interesting. Also, not to go back to what you were saying, but if they were gonna cast Zach Galifianakis, it'd be weird because doesn't Ben like lose a lot of weight and like become?
Well, that's why I was saying Zach would have to lose.
Sorry,
50, 60 pounds.
I'm sorry. I just don't like listening.
Yeah, how dare you?
Any final thoughts?
I mean, Karen Gillan could play Bev.
No.
Even though it would take me out of it, she could do it.
You touch my Jumanji, you stay far away. Stay far away from me. Any final thoughts, guys?
Kevin Hart should play all the characters.
Nope. Zach?
I think you should be the new Pennywise.
Did you just say Kevin Hart should be the new Pennywise?
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're gonna end this right here, right now, before I throw up.
Yeah. Fuck that. Just fuck everything about that, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
No. Honestly, my last thoughts are It was a really good time. It gave me everything I wanted when I went to go see an It movie, and I can't wait for the sequel. I think if you just want to like a fun movie watch, I don't think it's one of those movies that like tested time wise will stick out in your memory as one of your favorite movies of all time. But I think it's really good at what it intends to do, and it does a great job at like the type of movie it wants to be, and just does it well. So I think if you want to have a good time just watching a movie, or you just want to see a good horror movie because you haven't seen one in over fucking years.
I know, that's what I was gonna say. I can't remember the last good horror movie I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
didn't rely on jump
this
scares. It genuinely
satisfied
relied
that.
on its atmosphere and shit.
Yeah.
So it's good.
This is the first horror movie that I've seen in maybe the last 10 years that really affected me like this and made me want to see it again. Like, I don't really usually feel that way about a horror movie, but this is an exception. And
I saw it back to back,
yeah,
and I loved it both times. And
Yeah.
that never happens.
I actually think, in contrast to what you said, Zach, I think that down the road, this movie might actually stand the test of time, but it depends. Like, a year from now, if this is a movie that people are talking about, then we'll know. But for now, like, it's obviously just come out. So,
Financially, it's done very well.
yeah, and it deserves it very much so. I just hope.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
I just hope so that
I hope it doesn't go to their heads.
exactly. I don't want them making a cinematic universe out of Pennywise. We don't need that shit.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they're trying to make a Stephen King. It's like everything's Stephen King now. There's like the AOL TV show on Mr. Mercedes, which is actually really good. There's this movie. There's it. There's Dark Tower. It's like,
The only thing
why
that
is it all of a sudden?
the thing is that all of these are by different studios and different departments. Like, I don't think they're all like cooking up something deliberately to make a cinematic universe.
I
But
hope not.
yeah, I feel like the more cinematic universes, the worse the industry will be. And thankfully, this is one of those rare times where I can say I think this will have a positive influence on the
I
industry,
think so too.
because like a R-rated horror movie this successful can only yield good results. At least I hope.
Yeah, I mean, it beat out Deadpool, and it's a horror movie, which
Yeah.
is shocking.
Yeah, that's true.
In one day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I think it's just a testament to how it almost felt fresh. It's like, yeah, there have been amazing horror movies in the past, but nowadays it's so rare to see a horror movie that isn't just a cash grab that it was like, I feel like it did better simply by not being just a cash grab. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, I agree. This was a movie that deserves all the success it gets, honestly. And quite frankly, I am looking forward to the sequel.
I am too.
All right, I
Sure.
think that's about it. Thanks for listening. Feel free to subscribe, like, share it with everyone. Your best friend, your neighbor, your worst enemy. I don't really.
Your dog.
Your cat.
Your dog.
Your dog's cat. Your cat's dog.
Oh, my dog has a cat.
Dancing clown in your closet. Just,
Oh.
you know, sure.
Wait, you have a dancing
That
clown in your closet too?
Speaking of dancing clown, really quick, the scene where Pennywise is actually
Oh,
dancing
yeah.
and the camera is stabilized on his head is probably one of my favorite things I've ever seen.
Oh, just I'm still replaying the image of Georgie like crawling away. Honestly, like that was so fucked
Did you
up.
guys send the thing where the kid that played Georgie saw the movie
Yeah,
dressed
yeah,
as
yeah.
Georgie?
Yeah.
That's great. I'm surprised that he actually sat down and watched it because it reminded me of The Shining, where the kid, they didn't tell him he was in a scary movie.
I just can't imagine the idea of like
Seeing your own arm get bitten off by a giant
no being a child and seeing yourself die on a screen.
on screen, yeah.
Anyways, once again, thanks for watching. Do all that stuff. Subscribe, like, share, comment, Hail Hydra, whatever.
Jesus.
Okay. Bye guys.
Hail Hydra.
Bye bye.